Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking to you about the shocks on my 08X scooter. Before we get started, I just wanted to ask you guys, if you haven't already become a subscriber, to go ahead and do that. So click that button and let's get started. The first step in the process is to go ahead and disassemble everything. So that includes removing the brakes as well as the bolts and screws that hold on the splash guard and the suspension arms themselves. Now you don't have to take off both of the suspension arms, but in my case I'm actually making some changes to the suspension arms themselves, and I'll show you guys that a little bit later. Definitely need to make sure that you do keep all of the washers and make note of to where they are, the placement on the scooter. There's a lot of little screws that hold on the splash guard as well, so just make sure you don't have anything go missing. Before I started this project, I reached out to Falcon PEV because I wanted to make sure I had the right shock for this, and so I asked them specifically which would be the best for my 8X scooter. Their response to me was the AOY 36RC. So that was the shock that I went ahead and purchased. I didn't actually purchase it from Falcon PEV, I got it on eBay, but it is the exact same shock that they recommended I get, D&M AOY 36RC. As far as reassembling, there isn't really much to it, just a couple of bolts to get everything back together. However, you're going to see here in a moment that this project actually turned out to be a huge failure. So the reason that this didn't work, the current shock that comes on the scooter is 5.25 inches or 133.5 millimeters. The new shock that I got is 6.49 inches or 165 millimeters. So that's a significant difference, and that's just not going to work. So this video is actually kind of turning into more of just how the existing shocks are, if you really even need to make this upgrade, and then now kind of just a shift to changing out the vinyl wrap I had on these to a powder coated version of them. As I said earlier, there really isn't too much to the reassembly of the scooter. Just have to make sure that you get the washers and all of the nuts back into place where they were previously. I think the trickiest part for me was routing the cable or the wire that actually powers the motor. It does have to go up over the suspension arm, and so the first time I put it on, I kind of did that backwards, so I had to remove it and redo it. So just make sure you take note of exactly the placement of where all the nuts, washers, wires, and everything is, to save yourself a little bit of hassle if you decided to do this. One of the last steps in the reassembly process was just getting the brakes put back on correctly. When I did remount them on here, I did have to make some adjustments to make sure the pad wasn't rubbing onto the rotor there, but it is actually really easy to do. There's just two Allen screws that you just loosen and then make sure that you have the rotor in the center of where the brake calipers go. When I decided to take on this project, I wasn't really sure what I was getting into. I had read from some other riders of the 10X that it did make a pretty big difference, and so I was very hopeful. But to be honest, I didn't feel like the current shocks were really that terrible to begin with. I don't necessarily really notice the solid rubber tires making it a rougher ride, and so I don't know if it really would make that big of a difference, but it seems that the current shocks that are available just aren't going to work. So unless you can find something around the 145 millimeter range for the shock, I just don't think it's going to be possible to upgrade these shocks for this scooter. So that's all I got for today. If you guys have any questions, make sure you leave those in the comments below. If you did like this video, please make sure you hit that button. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.